If I sound like I had COVID for the last 2 weeks, it's because I did. So just like ignore the fact that I'm super congested. Please. Hi, hello, how are you? I'm Alex. If you're new here, it's nice to meet you. And if you're coming back, we're best friends now. You know how this goes. I hope you're doing well. And if not, I totally get that. Times are tough, and I don't really have anything supportive to say other than it's okay to not be okay, and I hope tomorrow is better. Can you stop? Sorry, my stomach is grumbling, even though I just ate breakfast. It is what it is. February has gone and passed. I have turned 24. And I just wanted to talk about the books that I read in February, which was 12 of them, except 2 of them were short stories, so like, do they really count? Yes, they do. I'm just gonna make them count, because this is my channel, I can do whatever I want. So yeah, I'm just gonna chat about the books that I read in February, none of which I own, which is interesting. I read them all on my e-reader, read them on the Libby app, or listened to them as audiobooks. So let's get started. The first book that I read for February, that I technically started in January, but I finished in February, was Unwell Women, Misdiagnosis and Myth in a Man-Made World by Elinor Cleghorn. So this is a nonfiction book, and I read it for my Diversity in STEM book club. And it's all about the relationship between women and the medical system, and how the medical system has failed women every step of the way, and how there are a lot of changes that have been made throughout history and throughout our current times, but how there are a lot of changes that still need to be made. Both about how women are treated in the medical system, how women's pain is perceived, how menstruation is perceived, but also the inclusion of women of color. It was like fairly easy read in terms of like the science was very approachable, the history was very approachable, but the book was definitely a lot to digest. In the beginning especially, I had a really hard time getting through the more than like 20 pages at a time, because it was just like, it was horrible. Like, women really were dealt a shitty hand, and it was kind of like, this is what it is, deal with it. It was really interesting to learn the etymology of the word hysteria, which comes from the word hysterus, which comes from hystericus, which comes from, I can't remember the Greek word now. But anyways, it means uterus, and it's because it was perceived that any illness or ailment or strange behavior that women expressed was because they have a uterus and they are sick because of their reproductive organs. It was really interesting to learn the history of the relationship between women in the medical system, and how women have been treated by doctors and by their gynecologists for centuries, and how there's so much change that still needs to be made in the medical system today. And it inspired a lot of reads and a lot of research that I did after reading that book. So I highly, highly recommend it. I think it was excellent. I think it's eye-opening. I think it's heartbreaking, and I also think it's empowering. Then I read Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison Beschdel. Loved it. It's like the best book I've read in 2022 so far, I think. It's a graphic novel, and it is a memoir about Alison Beschdel and her family, specifically her relationship with her father. And Fun Home is short for funeral home, because they owned a family funeral home. And it's a hard book to swallow. It deals with a lot of triggering content and a lot of complicated themes, but it was really interesting to see how Alison reflects on her life growing up, how she reflects on her relationship with her father up until the point that he died, and how that affected her life as a young adult and moving on from that situation that she grew up in. Really interesting, phenomenal graphic novel, phenomenal read. I loved it. I honestly want to reread it already. Excellent. Then, right after the best book of the year, so far. It's only February. Well, it's only March now. I read The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. Okay. I wanted to DNF this after the first page. Then I was like, I'm reading this for a book club. I might as well continue with it. It's really highly rated. It has like over a 4 out of 5-star review on Goodreads. Everyone on TikTok loves it. Everyone on Instagram loves it. Indigo talks about it a lot. So I was like, I'm gonna give it a chance. Maybe it's just the first chapter that's rough. I finished it in like a day and a half because it's a really skimmable book. It is so repetitive, so poorly written. The story was just like brutal to read through because it was like reading about this grade 1 relationship where it's like, if a boy teases you, it means he likes you. And there was like no development of their relationship. Also, I have beef with anyone that calls this enemies to lovers because like it's not. Enemies to lovers means they genuinely despise each other, and through that there's like a buildup of tension and they build a relationship. But this was enemies to lovers, as in they were both like jerks to each other, but they both like secretly were obsessed with each other, and then they fake dated, but like not really, because the guy was like actually like obsessed with her. It was not good. I've read One Direction fan fiction where Harry Styles kidnaps you, written by teenagers as a 14-year-old, that was better than this. The steamy scenes were like smutty and not well written. The physical descriptions made no sense. Okay, like Aaron is like described as if he's ginormous. Like, this man breaks a bed by sitting on it. Anyone that is compared to him, he's like giant and they're like chess piece size in comparison to him. Like, I don't understand. Like, it was just so tropey in all the wrong ways. Like, it was like giant man, tiny woman, like super protective and like controlling. Yeah, I hated it. The amounts of times his blue eyes were mentioned, like the blueness of his eyes, did I mention his eyes were blue, was 109 times as far as I counted. There may have been more. I may have missed a few instances. I didn't include comparisons to the ocean, so do with that what you will. After that, I had to cleanse my palette, and I read The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which I spoke about in my Unhinged Women video, and it was mentioned a couple of times in Unwell Women by Elinor Cleghorn, because it is about a woman who is unwell and her husband, who is a physician and obviously knows everything because not only is he a doctor, but he's a man. He puts her on like bed rest. Like bed rest so intense, she's not allowed to read books, she's not allowed to talk to anyone. So she just stares at this horrid yellow wallpaper and slowly loses her mind. It's good. It's short. It's a short story, but it's really good. Then I listened to the audiobook Gathering Moss, which is Historical and Cultural History of Mosses by Robin Wall Kimmerer. At the end of the year last year, I read Braiding Sweetgrass by Dr. Kimmerer, and it was amazing. It was like my second or third top book of 2021. It was incredible. It changed my life. It rocked my world. I mean, I love science. I love plants. I am a biologist. But I think anyone could love this, and anyone could find the story emotional, could find Dr. Kimmerer's verse just incredibly engaging and beautiful. Like, she's such an incredible poet and writer. In Gathering Moss, it did not disappoint. It was another 5-star read for me. I listened to the audiobook instead of reading the physical book this time. And it is narrated by Dr. Kimmerer, and it's incredible. She has the most soothing voice ever. Reading both books, I'm like, I want to do my PhD with her. Like, I want Dr. Kimmerer to be my supervisor because she's just incredible. And I learned so much from both of her books. Highly, highly, highly recommend both of them. I personally loved listening to the audiobook, but one of my friends, she tried listening to the audiobook and she wasn't a fan, but she did love the book. So then I read Seek You, A Journey in American Loneliness by radtke, I think is her name. And I liked it. I'm doing the Toronto Public Library reading challenge, and one of the challenges is to read a book about solitude. And this one seemed interesting. It's a graphic novel all about reflections on loneliness and solitude in America, especially after the pandemic hit and people were forced into isolation for so long. And it was really interesting to read her research and her reflections on loneliness. I thought it was an interesting read. Then I listened to the audiobook of Such a Fun Age by Reid, and I loved it. I talk about it in my last vlog. I thought it was an incredible audiobook. The narrator, Nicole Lewis, is fantastic. Like, she's an incredible narrator. She does different voices for each of her characters, and she has just incredible expression, and she's so good at just plucking you out of your life and putting you in the story and really making you, I don't know, feel the setting and feel the characters' emotions. It was just fantastic. I think I liked it more because I listened to the audiobook. Highly, highly recommend it. It has a really interesting and really important reflection on race and class. Really well done. After that, I listened to the audiobook for Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it did not disappoint. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read Daisy Jones and the Six a couple of years ago and I loved it. I've been meaning to read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have it on hold at the library and I'm still waiting for it. But I got like not an advanced reader copy. I made the same mistake last video. I got a skip the line copy from the library. So I had the audiobook for 7 days, but I finished the book in like 24 hours or something like that. Cause it's so good. And like, I swear TJR's books are like made to be devoured. Like they're so good. They're so good. I loved Malibu Rising. It's about the Rivas siblings. There are 4 of them, and they throw this party, and things go haywire. And I just really loved how it was told. Like, every other chapter would flash back to the past and talk about their parents' lives, and then every narration of the now was like divided into hours and build up to the party and build through the party. And it was really interesting. I don't know how she makes me want to read books about rich people, but here we are. Then I listened to the audiobook from Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and it was so gross. Like, it was disgusting and horrible and so good. It is a horror / thriller. I did find that there were some ideas taken from the yellow wallpaper, which is really interesting. You know, the concept of unwell women, the way sick women were treated in like the 1950s. It was really interesting, very intriguing. Like I can't even like express, this is how I feel about this book. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was this gif. The whole time, every chapter, every minute of this audiobook. It just blew me away. I read it in a day. It was amazing and like so gross. So gross. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you. I feel like this is a really good book to go into not knowing much about it. But what I really love about it is the theme of the house. And the house not just being a part of the setting, but being part of like the plot, being an important part of the story. Because I really like that theme in literature, especially like horror gothic novels. And I definitely want to do a video on that. So this was a really great read. You will lose your appetite. I almost guarantee you. Like, there were moments where I had to pause the audiobook and just like sit there and think about what I just heard. It was so good. Then I read Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker, which is another graphic novel about witches and werewolves and magic, and it was cute, but I wanted more. I don't know, there was like, It was missing substance. I don't know how to explain it, but the art was cute and the story was cute, so it's definitely a sweet, light read. And then I read Opal by Maggie Stiefvater, which is a short story that happens after the Raven Cycle series ends, and it's about like Opal, who is the orphan girl that Ronan dreams up. And I don't want to spoil it because you need to read the series first, but Stiefvater, like, she's a genius, okay? Like, she is such a good writer. Will Patton is such a good narrator for her books. I don't know what it is about him, but like, I listened to the audiobook and I was blown away. It was really good. And I don't even like short stories that much, but it was really good. Like, really good. That's it, that's all for my reading in February. I read a ton because like I had nothing better to do when I was in bed with COVID. I hope you like this video. Please let me know what you're reading right now, what your favorite book in February was, because I always love to know what you guys are reading. And if you like this video, like this video. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.